the Bucks storm back to get a monster win, 113-106. James Harden finishes with 29 points, 5 rebounds. I'm sorry, that's Paul George, 29 points, 5 boards and assist. Harden had 29 points and 8 assists in this one. Kawhi Leonard, though, just 16 points on 6 of 19 shooting. Meanwhile, the Bucks are without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who sits out with injury. They're without Chris Middleton, who sits out with injury, and they storm back to get the win in a monster fourth quarter. Dame time all over the place as he goes for 41. Bobby Portis, wild, crazy eyes, Bobby Portis. Woo pig suey. Brian Fonseca clapping here on Buckets with 28 points off the bench for a guy that has had a season that was so bad Bucks fans were clamoring for a trade. Absolutely wild game. Obviously, Bucks get the cover in this one. This spread was all over the place given the injury situation. The Bucks wind up covering as 3-point dogs, and the under again, 222.5 as the Clippers score just 106. Jay, I want to ask you about this one. So Bucks are shorthanded. They're at home. This has not been a good spot for them. Like Dame hasn't been Dame this year. Does the fact that the defense is now this good since the All-Star break, since they've actually had time to kind of reset, and the fact that Dame is now playing like this, does this change your perception of what their chances are in the Eastern Conference? Or are you still kind of like, it's the Clippers on the back-to-back, I'm not buying it?
Well, I mean, they've been playing a lot better. 6 straight wins, 6 straight covers. Looked like Dame has finally woken up, even though he doesn't really seem to care to be in Milwaukee. Not necessarily playing basketball, just talking about living as a human being. I think that's a part that people don't really look at as well. Like, just these guys are human beings. So Dame is somewhat kind of woken up here. And I mean, the fact that they beat this team without Giannis was pretty crazy. Now, obviously, we have to admit the Clippers are an older team. They obviously ran out of gas in the fourth quarter of this game. I know Kawhi Leonard didn't make a shot for like at least a 3 or 4 minute stretch to open up the fourth quarter as well, man. So I think that's one of the biggest stories, that obviously the Clippers really run out of gas because they had a chance to make a leap and to try to get to that number 1 seed. Like these are really important games for the Clippers. But I would go on a limb and say the Bucks are probably inserting themselves as the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference. I know Brian probably doesn't like that, but I would say the Bucks are probably the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics. But I mean, don't get me started on the Eastern Conference. It's the Celtics and everybody else. I think I'm taking the Celtics versus everybody, and I know that the Heat are right there. I know that the Bucks are right there, and even the Knicks at full squad could be right there. But I would say that this inserts them as possibly number 2, but there's still a huge gap from number 1 to number 2 in my opinion.
Yeah, there's got to be with how they've played. Clippers right now uh, are the last 2 weeks over at Cleaning the Glass. They're 17th in offense, 21st in defense. How about this, Brian? 27th in spread differential over at Cleaning the Glass, minus 6.2. There was a great spot to buy them early, and I got in on some division futures. And I keep wondering if I need to hedge with the Kings or the Suns. And every time I think that, one of those teams loses, and then I'm like, well, no, I'm probably still good here with my Clippers futures. I mean, this is like an interesting inflection point, right? The Clippers are definitely like they hit a high point and now they crested and now they're kind of like settling back a little bit. I don't know if this is a lull or if this is genuinely like okay, they played well for a couple months, but this is not, that wasn't reflective of who they are as a team. Now look, this is a road back to back. Okay. And I want to give the Clippers credit here for one, playing their guys. Like that was a problem for us all last year, was like for the last 3 years, they haven't played their guys in these type of spots. Clippers have played. And so I want to give them credit for doing so. But Brian, I am a little bit concerned, I think, with the Clippers if you're looking at future stuff. Like I have some finals matchup stuff with them from early in the season when I was buying up before they turned the corner. I could see that they were getting there and I was buying them up early. I'm fine with having that position in my portfolio, but I am kind of wondering if the Clippers if this fade is going to be extreme enough for them to maybe be a fade once we get to the playoffs, depending on who they face.
Yeah, I think a lot of the West is going to be matchup dependent.
Yeah.
I honestly was lower on the Clippers than most people. Like, I went on Green Dot Daily a few weeks ago and I was like, why are we just giving them the Western Conference when everybody just had a boner about them? Oh, going on this run and beating everybody in the West. And it's like, we're in February. Like, what are we doing? We're just handing them the Western Conference because they look great. That being said, second of a back-to-back, I'm not going to kill them for this, but I do feel like if you have a 15-point lead late in the game, you should probably finish off the Milwaukee Bucks, who don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Probably should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably do that. A team without, two of their stars and obviously one of the best players in the league finishes you off like that. Like, that's not ideal. Bobby Portis, who I love, one of my favorite players in the league, not even totally for basketball reasons. I always say about Bobby Portis, when he punched Nikola Mirotic in the face, they traded Nikola Mirotic, not Bobby Portis. So that's an important point to bring up in terms of his defense. But he had 28 and 16, and he's capable of having these games. Like, he had a big game, even in the game 6 where they closed out the Phoenix Suns to win the NBA Finals. He had some big games in the series against the Hawks. Like, he's been there for a while, and is somebody who I think is one of their X factors come playoff time. Patrick Beverley was doing Patrick Beverley things. That was a lot of fun to watch. Had a handful of steals. I believe he finished with 4 on the defensive end. But the Clippers, like, my concerns about them is not even just age related, but also, like, you do wonder in big spots about everybody not named Kawhi Leonard, which is funny to say on a night where Kawhi Leonard was the guy who didn't have the great game tonight. You know what I mean? So there's just a combination of things. I think it's ultimately going to be matchup dependent. Do I feel good about the Clippers in the series against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Yeah, I probably do. Do I feel good about them against Denver? I don't feel great about anybody against Denver right now. Against Phoenix, I would probably lean toward the Clippers in that direction. But I do think that when people were saying, hey, James Harden, for example, he doesn't need to do, special playoff things because of who he has on his team. And it's like, you still kind of need him to be good in the playoffs. So you still kind of need Paul George to show up. So I still have questions in that regard. I don't have questions about their coaching, though. And that's something I think they're going to have an edge with Ty Lue leading the way against a lot of other teams in the West. So we'll see.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you there because this is one of actually my concerns here. Look, I think Ty's really inventive, and that's good, but I think he's a little too inventive. I hate the 5-guard lineups. I hate it. I hate them.
I agree with that.
Like Gollum. I hate them. I want those things banished from the earth, because every single when he pulled those out last year versus the Suns, I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is like the one team that you should be big against. Mason Plumlee doesn't play tonight. Okay, back to back, I get it. And like his minutes are like they are piecing it together with wherever they kind of feel. But like Tice is basically their small ball guy. And I just feel that Lou is a little too attached to him. Because if I'm going up against Lopez this much, if I'm going up against this Bucks team and Bobby, quite honestly, like, I want Mason's physicality. Tice is a tough dude, but Tice is a tough dude in that he'll take a hit and keep chugging. Like, he's got Steven Adams energy versus like Mason will hit back a little bit. Like, Mason's actually pretty tough and he's a very skilled passer. And I just feel like I feel like Lou always is kind of leaning back into these small ball lineups. And this was, I don't think the another spot where I don't think you want to get in these spots where you're getting out physical. They got to be able to play a little bit bigger. And I think that that's a little bit of an issue for him. Now, look, a lot of the starters were good in this game. Again, it was just kind of like a prolonged stretch. Amir Coffey's plus minus was a disaster, which is a bummer for me, as I love Amir Coffey. He's one of those guys in the league that I really like. But I thought it was just kind of an interesting game from this perspective.